in the 50s, American-made cars were the best in the world. General Motors was the biggest auto manufacturer in the world. Matter of fact, at that time, they could have given everybody a car and just made money off of the parts. So, but that was what's going on. Now, see, I was born. I'm one of the late baby boomers. The baby boomers came after World War II. So I'd been in the mid 40s. I came around the late 40s is when I came around. So that's why I'm for the grumpy old men, baby boomers. I'm really one of the younger ones of them, and like I say, so a lot of the stuff listen, when they came back from World War II, all the soldiers came back. Then that's when the country really started developing and getting going. They had to create jobs for all these military people and all this kind of stuff. And like I say, everybody was starting to have babies and all this stuff. So there was a lot of production going on in the United States. And the thing was, I say the automobile was one of the best. Detroit, boy, they made the best automobiles there was. It was funny because they were big, they were bulky. I mean, they were. If you ever get a chance to ride around one of these cars, these what they call them antiques now, but like I say, I remember running around with 57s Chevy. And that used to be a big thing. And, see, I think I had one of those. I don't know. I had a Mustang, a '69 Mustang when I came back from Vietnam. I had a '69 Mustang Mach 1, and so basically I was doing the same thing when I came back from Vietnam as what the soldiers did when they came back from World War II. Like I say, they came back, so they bought cars, they bought motorcycles. That's where Harley really started taking off and stuff like that. But it was funny because the American automobile makers had the monopoly on automobiles, especially in the United States. And even down here, you can find American vehicles all over, everywhere. And a lot of them are going to be, like I say, 40s and 50s. Maybe a few 60s. It's going to be all over, everywhere, because the United States developed so much. I remember when I got married, be in the early 70s, and somewhere or another I got tangled up with a Datsun, and that's a Nissan. It was used Datsun. Somewhere or another turned into Nissan. But at that time, in the early 70s, when the United States had all these muscle cars and all this kind of stuff, Toyota and Datsun had their little dinky cars. And it was funny because those cars, you had to, they were little 4-cylinders, and you had to change gears just to get across the intersection. That tells you what it was. And our muscle cars, I mean, man, they burn all the way across the intersection. So that's what was the big difference. And but the thing is, people still wanted to buy them. And so because they were really cheap. I mean, I think now my Mustang, '69 Mustang, I believe was $3,000 brand new, I believe. I also had, what do you call it, Econoline van. And I got, when I, back those, that was, what do you call it, racial problems, a lot of bad racial problems. And at that time, when I came back from Vietnam, I bought the Mustang, and then I found out how the racial, what they do is burn your car. Now, I didn't want anybody burning my Mustang, so then I thought, okay, this is going to be war. This is what happened. Well, that's what, I'm not going to tell you what happened, but the thing was, I got into a racial problem, and then I could see, okay, you want to fight, you want a war with me, you're going to get a war. And so I got rid of the Mustang, and I got this Econoline. And at that time, it was $69 Econoline, and at that time, you could pay Detroit to do modifications. And so I got this Mustang, or this Econoline van, and I had them put a Positrack V8, 302 V8 in it. And I could do wheelies with that thing. I mean, I took it to the drag strip. I'd drag it. And, I mean, it wouldn't win anything because it was, I mean, I couldn't win against the other Mustangs and Corvettes and stuff like that. But like I say, it was sharp. It was cool. And, but like I say, they had these Toyotas, and they limited how many, and these Toyotas cost, I think $1,200, I think, maybe even less, maybe $7,000 or $8,000. But they limited how many they could import. Buenos dias, buenos dias. And so they put a limit on how many, because people kept buying more and more of them. They said the way the big companies work hand in hand with the government. And so they told the government, we need to limit how many of these small companies, small Toyota stuff can come in this country. So then they did. They told Toyota, well, you can only bring 100,000 of your cars in every year, and that's it. And so Toyota ended up saying, okay, well, we'll do that. But what they ended up doing, I think it was like 6,000 or 7,000 for the early Toyotas and Datsuns. And then what they did is they jumped the price up to $7,000 or $8,000, maybe $9,000. But they had reclining seats. They had radio was already in there, and there was other things. I wish I could think better what it was, but there was other things they would add on to the car that would come standard. And at that time, you had to pay extra for all this stuff on American-made cars. So then what they did, they raised the price a little bit, and they gave standard a lot of stuff that you had to pay extra for on American-made cars. And so then they got even worse. They told them, okay, you're too cheap. Your cars are too cheap. You're going to have to raise the price to make them more competitive with our American-made cars. And then Toyota said, okay, no problem, we'll raise the price. Air conditioning was included. And say all the power windows, and just one thing after another. And like I say, the motors became bigger, better, and so what it ended up doing, they made a better quality car, and the price went up even more. But still, they were still less than the American-made car. So competition is what made them get going. And then when the government restricted how many they could bring in, they just upped the quality instead of trying to stay on the low end of the market. And that's why now you start coming up with all these fancy Japanese cars coming in. Well, that's why those cars were developed. Like I say, they kept the minimum. You can only bring this many cars into the United States. So then and then eventually when Toyota realized, hey, we got a good market here, and we got the people are loyal to our products. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start manufacturing our Toyotas in the United States, and that will eliminate how many we can bring into the country. So then that's how they started making Toyotas in the United States. And so that's the way that the automobile developed here in the United States, and how, like I say, they got their foot in the door, and by doing good business practices, they were able to kind of take over the market. And like I say, Detroit lost their good business practices. I had an 80, I think it was an 80 Oldsmobile, and I had problems. I couldn't get anything taken care of at the dealer. I ended up calling Detroit trying to get things taken care of, and they wouldn't take care of the customer. That was the last American-made car I owned. And like I say, even my own family, they were brought up with Japanese-made cars because Detroit would not back their products. In other words, they lost their moral standing as a good business. They lost good moral business practices. That's how the automobiles lost their footing in the world market. Now, like I say, there's going to be more. I'm going to talk about more on automobiles and how it used to be and how we got to this point. And it's not all about automobiles. I'm talking about all kinds of stuff. This is Mike, NoStressMike.com.